Hello everyone, it's Sandra and welcome to today's video. I'm finally sharing my thoughts on the Guerlain Terracotta Le Teint foundation, letting you know how I've been getting on with it. I've been using it for the last couple of months and it's been quite a roller coaster. And to be honest, most of the time I did not enjoy the ride. It's been a journey trying to get this to work for me, trying to figure out where it would live in my routine, in my foundation wardrobe, if you will. I don't mind having multiple foundations for different occasions, different seasons, particular things like that. I'm not a minimalist by any means, but at the same time, I don't like to throw money down the drain. So if I get a product that's not the easiest right from the get-go, I like to find a way to ultimately make it work. I don't like to just return stuff, which is probably silly. Maybe I should have just returned this when I tried this the first couple weeks, but I saw that this had potential. This is a luxury foundation, comes at a luxury price point. I bought this during the Sephora sale back in the spring, which feels like an eternity ago. I can't even believe that we are at the end of June, but that is that's a tangent for another video. I think they did such a beautiful job with the packaging, marrying the modern aesthetic with the more minimal, clean font, but still having a nod to that old, glamorous Guerlain heritage with the cap. I think that in terms of the design and the packaging, it's beautiful. It feels really nice in the hand. Terracotta Le Teint pairs the lightness and radiance of a powder with the perfection of a foundation. I'd say this is a solid medium coverage foundation, buildable to like medium full even. So you only need a small amount to get an impact. I probably used up a pump of foundation to get the look that you see on my face today, and I did not use concealer on my face. I just used concealer under my eyes. This definitely packs a punch in terms of coverage. And I got this in the shade 2N, which is a really good match for me. It does, 2N is supposed to be neutral. It does lean a little bit warm, and I've seen that even the warm shades lean really, really warm. The neutrals lean a bit warm. This dries down darker. So you see how light it is now in the fresh swatch, but if we give it some time, as it sets into the skin, it dries down a little bit darker. So if you're trying to color match yourself, the way it looks on the skin when you're initially spreading it out is not the way that it will look as it settles. You can see now that it has fully set down on my skin. You can see how much darker it is, and now it just kind of blended in with my skin. And once it sets like this, I don't find that it changes even further throughout the day. I'd say if you give it about 5 minutes, that's kind of the color that you're going to end up with. Another thing to note is the fragrance. This is a fragranced foundation. It contains like added fragrance. It's definitely noticeable. I'm not sensitive to scents in that my skin gets a reaction from it. I'm just sensitive to it because I can smell things. Like I can still smell this on my face after about a couple of hours, but a lot of people say that they don't smell it. So it just depends. If you're also like a little truffle pig like I am, you might still notice it on your skin, and if that kind of thing bothers you, then maybe skip this. It's not my favorite in terms of foundation scents. I'd say I personally like the smell of Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk, for example. I like the smell of YSL foundations. It's like a powdery floral scent, but it's more powdery than floral. A Chanel or Dior foundation, for example, is more floral than this. This is more powdery. It's not a deal breaker for me. I don't like really hate it, but it's not my favorite. If I had to pick a fragrance for a foundation, this is not the scent that I would choose for it, you know what I mean? Let's get into the application and my challenges with this foundation. It's finicky. It doesn't just work. I can't just slap it on at the end of my morning skincare routine and get on with my day. It looks terrible when I do that. It just sits on my skin and it emphasizes dryness and it wears horribly. It wears horribly. After about a couple of hours, it starts separated and sinking it and in weird places, and I'm not a fan. And I've tried this. First, I thought it was my sunscreen. So I tried it with 3 different sunscreens. I tried it with a mineral sunscreen. I've tried it with a combination sunscreen with both mineral and chemical filters. I tried it with an all chemical sunscreen. It gave me the same issue with all of those sunscreens. So then I removed sunscreen out of the equation. I had a very similar experience. And even on freshly exfoliated skin, I still didn't love the way that it sat on top of my morning skincare routine. It didn't look bad. Okay, I'm not saying it looked bad. I'm showing you pictures on the screen. Like, it was fine. I was able to get on throughout the day, but it didn't wear nicely. It looked okay for the first 2-3 hours, but then it just started wearing really, really strangely. It's really emphasizing the dryness, and it's really emphasizing my texture. Other foundations just don't do this. Like, Makeup Forever does not do this. Armani Luminous Silk does not do this. So my skin is looking oily and dry at the same time. It just didn't become my first pick. I have foundations that don't do this. One day I would try this, I would get a bad experience. Then the next day I would do the exact same skin prep and I would use the Makeup Forever HD Skin Foundation, for example, or my Fenty Skin Tint, my tried and true everyday foundation staples, and they didn't do that. There's just something about the interaction of this product with my skincare routine and the natural texture of my skin that just didn't jive. Now let's get into the application and the way that I've been able to make this foundation work for me. I've seen this foundation work beautifully on people with a variety of different skin issues and skin concerns. I've also talked with a few people on Instagram that have had similar issues to me. So it's comforting knowing that I'm not alone. And I have had a very similar experience with the Lisa Eldridge foundation as well. So it's not an isolated incident, but it's frustrating nonetheless. So my skin is just cleansed, exfoliated, and I have the barest bones level of hydration on there. I just used the most lightweight hydrating thing that I have, the Iris and Romeo Reset Luminous Hyaluronic Serum Spray. So this is essentially a hydrating hyaluronic acid serum, but it's in a spray form, super, super lightweight, and it just gives me enough hydration so my skin feels just nice and happy and comfortable. The Merit Great Skin Serum worked really well, but I actually recently used that up, so I don't have that anymore. So that's all I did today. Clean skin, just sprayed this on, tapped it into the skin. My skin just feels really comfortable and hydrated. For me, I found that it works best if I just work in sections, because as this sets, as this dries down, you almost feel it turning into a powder in a way. So I'm just using about half a pump and spreading it out with fingers on one section of my face. You can see this has really good coverage and it really stretches a lot. A little goes a long way. And one of the motions that Violette, who I think she's the creative director of Guerlain right now, in the marketing materials that I've seen, she talks about this pat and stretch motion. So you pat it in and then you stretch the formula. And she also applies it in sections. And she also, sometimes she uses like a buffing brush with it too. I don't love a buffing brush with this. I honestly find that sometimes I can get streaks with a brush. And I also didn't love using a sponge with it either. For me, a finger and doing that like tap and stretch motion gives me the most natural finish on the skin. We have it on one side. It gives me really nice coverage actually. Whenever I use this, I don't find the need to use a separate concealer on my face. Again, just about half a pump, spreading it out. And then doing the tap and stretch, just stretching it out, working it into the skin as it sets down. And this way I find it to be more long wearing as well. And the coverage is really nice. Again, just I use like maybe a quarter pump at a time whenever I'm doing these sections, because I would rather start slow and build. I think the first time I used it, I obviously didn't know. So I just did 2 pumps and it just looked way too heavy on my skin. I noticed that as I'm getting older, my skin just doesn't take to makeup as well as it used to. I used to be able to wear a full coverage foundation and I never thought much of it. Like I thought it looked really good and I was confident with it. And now I don't like the way a full coverage foundation looks on my face. I find that it tends to overwhelm my skin and I can just see it sitting on my skin. I wonder if any of you have had a similar experience. Now I'm all about keeping things as lightweight and skin-like and thin as possible so that it looks good in person, so that it just kind of melts in beautifully. Just has a nice natural satin finish. I feel like the name of it, Healthy Glow Natural Perfection Foundation, is almost a bit of an oxymoron. I don't find that this imparts any sort of healthy glow. It's definitely more of a natural perfection foundation because it just has a natural satin skin finish. Now, obviously, depending on your skin, you might be able to, use like something really glowy underneath and get the glow to shine through. But when I tried that, it did not wear well at all. It just started breaking down really quickly and it just looked very, very odd on my face. So for me, what works best with this foundation is treating it almost as a powder foundation. So it sets, liquid to powder. So I'm thinking I only do powders with this foundation, and that's how I've been able to get a good result. So powder blush, powder bronzer. I'm just building it up where I have a little bit of extra pigmentation, and it does build nicely. Like I said, when I use this, I don't find the need to use an extra concealer on my face. I just do concealer under my eyes. And then for concealer, I'm using the Coffee concealer because this has, I think this is the most coverage under eye concealer that I have. So I like to match the coverage level of the concealer with the foundation since I'm using a higher coverage foundation today. I'm keeping the powder to a minimum. I'm only going to set the areas where I applied the Coffee concealer because as you can see, the Coffee concealer has more of a luminous finish than the foundation. So I'm just gonna use a very, very light layer of my Givenchy powder to set the center of my face and just kind of knock back shine. So here is the base. You can notice it getting a little bit darker as it dries down. It definitely dries down darker than initially swatched. So if you are trying to color match yourself in a store, I highly recommend giving a good 5 minutes for the shade to dry down so that you can see a more accurate representation of the way it will look on your skin. So this will all come together once I apply my bronzer and my blush. Definitely making progress on my Beckham bronzer. A powder blush with a soft sheen works really well in this case because it will add some dimension to the face. It will add some dimension and life, but we're still keeping with the powder textures. So I'm just going to mix these 2 shades from the Chanel Tendresse face palette. As basic as this product is, I've been using it a lot. I have to say, it's just really convenient. It's convenient, it's easy. I can just open it up and mix all the colors together and be happy with my blush. And I'm gonna do a little bit of the shimmery shade, just as like a blush topper, just to add a little bit of shine on my cheeks. For eyes, I'm just slapping on some all-time faves, Chantecaille Sylvie and Chanel Undertone. Look at the dent I've made in it so far. Addicted to this combination. They just look so beautiful together. It's so easy, really nice, wears beautifully. And for my lips, I used the Victoria Beckham #2 lip liner with a little bit of Surratt Paramour Lipslique on top. Happy that I was able to get this to work for me. It's always a good sign when you can make something work and it's not money down the drain. But with that being said, would I run out to repurchase this after I use it up? Probably not. I have foundations that also work really well during the day, layered with my skincare, and I don't have any issues with application, namely Makeup Forever HD Skin and Dior Face and Body, which I keep meaning to repurchase. I saw that they have reformulated it, and I'm very, very curious about the formula updates and hoping it's still as amazing as I remember. I guess I'd give this like a 3 out of 5. I do really like it. It has been a nice evening out foundation. You know, in a world in which it's constantly chasing that new, and you're seeing mainly first impressions of new products, especially now that we are geared more towards short form content like YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, TikToks. There's only so much you can convey in a 30-second video, right? And you do a first impression. If a product doesn't work, you forget about it. You're gonna move on to the next thing. And especially if you're a creator and you're constantly bombarded with new products, getting them in PR and also buying them to review, you're not going to sit and spend 2 months trying to figure out how to get a foundation to work for you. You're going to move on to something else. And you're almost encouraging your audience to do that same thing too, even if you're not consciously doing it. So yeah, I think this has been an interesting lesson for me and an interesting experiment. And had I done a video on this foundation in the first week that I had it, I would have just given it a really negative review. I would have dismissed it and I would have moved on to the next thing. But is that of value to you if you also have this foundation? You also spent your hard-earned money on this foundation, and maybe you're not able to return it, but you'd like to get it to work. Or maybe you're also kind of on the fence and you'd like to kind of see more options. I don't know. I don't know where I'm getting at, but maybe I'm just hoping that this was helpful to you in some way or another. This is how I'm able to get this to work for me, and I'm enjoying it now. It has been a great evening out, like summer evening out foundation for me. My skin is combination oily, so yeah. That's a wrap on the Guerlain Terracotta Le Teint foundation. Let me know your thoughts. Have you tried this? Please share your experience in the comments below. Also, let us know your skin, like your skin situation, your skin prep, and it can be a great resource. If there are maybe other people watching that are trying to get this to work, they're not really sure, let's share our tips and tricks in the comments below. I hope you're having a beautiful day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.